then you'll hear from Elisa and Adelina. Each speaker will tell you about their own pathway, and we'll have a Q&A at the end, which will be led by Jess from Showcode. So feel free throughout the chat to kind of pop in your questions, and if it's directed at a particular person who's spoken, then obviously just write that in there. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Kim.
Hi everyone, can you all hear me? I'm waving, but I can't actually see you. But I hope you're enjoying Athena so far. That you've tuned into Lindsay's sort of React workshop yesterday. It was a blast. So my name's Kim, and I took a very unconventional pathway into tech. So I didn't do a computer science degree. I actually did a degree in geography, mainly because I wanted to go on the Tenerife field trip that was advertised from the university, so I picked that. And I remember myself sitting after my final exams and feeling extremely lost in what I wanted to do, what I really wanted to pursue in my career. And I completely missed all the deadlines for the graduate schemes and internships and got loads of rejections. So I felt so lost and so down. So I remember picking the first job that came on the portal on the university website, which was an energy industry analyst role. I didn't enjoy it at all. I was analysing energy markets, very interesting, picked up some cool skills and had that job for a while, moved into sustainability consulting so that I could help to raise environmental awareness. And I worked a lot with investment banking, investment management clients while in that role to make their portfolios more sustainable. And I reached, in my 20s, I reached the age of 25, 26. I thought, I have a quarter life crisis right now. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm sitting in London Bridge, getting drunk probably most weeks, and I just didn't really feel connected to what I was doing, and I felt like I was somehow on a path that wasn't for me. And at that time, my friend said, "Hey Kim, do you want to check out Code Bar? They run like free workshops in the community to get people stuck into technology and coding." So I did that. I thought, okay, yeah, I'll come along. It has free food, so yeah, why not? I'll come and get free dinner. So one of the first workshops I went to was at Twitter in London. I went into the offices, and it's so cool. Really enjoyed it, and I started to ask about, oh, what is code? Like, why do people talk about coding? And at this point, I was using so many apps, and I was curious and thought, oh, but I didn't do a computer science degree. It's the end for me now. Like, can I even move into tech? So I started to speak to people and realized that people had done career switches into technology, and I thought, oh, I'll give that a go myself. So I'm an alumni at Co-First Girls, so I did the Co-First Girls sort of free courses, and there's a trend here, as you can see. I did a lot of free courses because I didn't have the money, to be honest, of the funds to be able to pay for like a computer science degree or pay for a boot camp. So I was searching a lot for scholarships and free options. I then reached out to a lot of my friends and in the community just to ask a lot of questions about how the interview process is for these sort of scholarships, and I did that over the course of 2 years because I wanted to test the water first to see how it went. And yeah, luckily I got a scholarship to attend Makers, which is a boot camp in London. And through the sponsorship place, I was able to join one of the partner companies as a software engineer. So that was pretty cool. Got to work full stack, mainly in C#, building front ends and back ends. And at the time, I also thought about doing some DevOps, so I helped out with that. So DevOps is develop operations, and I'm working closely with the teams. And I since then have worked in e-commerce and finance roles, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, like I'm currently a week in, or 4 days and a half into my new role at Button Up Box. So I'm working on the platform team at Button Up Box to help with all the subscription boxes that ship out to all the amazing dogs out there to have really fresh food and deliver happiness to all humans and dogs across the world. So yeah, my pathway's been up and down. So hopefully, that's a bit about myself. In my spare time, I volunteer a lot in the community. I do kendo, which is some Japanese fencing and climbing. So that's what I do. Yeah. So hopefully that wasn't too long of an intro. That's about 5 minutes or so. So yeah.
Not at all. Congratulations on your new role. And if anyone's got any questions for Kim afterwards, please shoot them in the chat, and she'll definitely answer all of them. I'm going to hand it over to Jessie next to do a little bit of an intro and her pathway into tech.
Hey everyone, I'm Jessie. I'm a back-end engineer at CyberSafe, and similar to Kim, I also have like an unconventional pathway into tech. So I started at CyberSafe 3.5 years ago now, in the marketing and sales department, and shortly after moved into customer success, where a lot of what I was doing was support queries and working together with customers to like figure out bugs, talk about improvements, and a lot of that job required me to speak a lot to the engineering team and understand what was happening, why things were being built in a certain way, and be involved in the product processes to improve the product. And through that, I was constantly pestering the devs and trying to learn everything I could about what they were doing. And to the point where they decided that they would do a little introduction to Python course in the evenings for some of us that were curious about how they built things. And it was through that I think it was just 1 hour a week for 4 or 5 weeks. And after that, I was completely hooked. I was doing all the Googling and trying to find out how I could get into that role myself. And through that, I found Coding Black Females and Code First Girls, and found loads of amazing training opportunities through them. And I ended up doing the Sky Get Into Tech bootcamp, which was an evening part-time course. So while I was still working customer success, retrained in the evenings. And yeah, after that, I was able to make the move internally. So I have stayed at CyberSafe for the 3.5 years and moved 3 times into different departments. And I think one of the pieces of advice I would give is, especially if you're in a tech company, definitely go and speak to the engineers in your teams, in your company, and find out about how they got into it. Because through speaking to them and having that opportunity for them to teach me certain things, I discovered that a lot of them were from non-traditional backgrounds as well. And that was kind of the reassurance and the affirmation that I needed to know that it was possible for me as well. So yeah, since then I've been trying to figure out what part of the platform I like building, and I'm still very much in the early stages of my software development journey, but I've loved it so far. It's given me the opportunity to build things from scratch and also do more of the things I enjoy, which is to make something from an idea be delivered into a piece of software that a lot of people end up using. Yeah, and so I consider not just the self-taught element, but the community element and the community taught element, and being able to have the spaces where people are showing me how they've done it before in order to inform where I look and how I look and how I learn. And yeah, that's my journey so far.
That's epic. I love kind of like the fact that you were able to do it within your company as well, and that they were so supportive. I think that's really awesome. We actually did a survey at Beamery. We do this engineering all hands, and it's kind of like a flash survey that we do. And it came back that like 50% of our engineers had had unconditional pathways into tech, and we were just like, this is awesome. Like, so yeah, exactly what you said. Go talk to your engineers. It's a lot less daunting when you know that there's like a lot more people that have done that. I'm going to hand it over to Elisa next.
Hello. So yeah, I am one of those engineers with a very untraditional pathway into tech. I'm currently an associate data scientist at Beamery. I started at the end of February, but before that, I was doing the boot camp since October. So I've been here about 6 months now. So far, I've had a chance to work on some NLP projects. At the moment, I'm working on developing named entity recognition models to extract skills from textual data, such as CVs or job descriptions. And really, this is going to help us gain a more holistic, like accurate and enriched view of each candidate, and really allow them to be judged based on their potential and learning agility rather than just like education experience alone. But my pathway here has been very, very unconventional. I actually straight out of school, I did a degree in fashion. I hated it. Then, like in my third year, I became really interested in theoretical physics by reading lots of books, watching documentaries, going to some lectures. So after a year of traveling and like a brief stint of working in sales for a tech company, I decided to go back to education. I did an undergraduate degree in maths and physics at the Open University, which is like this like on online kind of course. It was really like the only option to study what I wanted to do at the time because there are no student loans available for a second degree. But that was great. I really enjoyed it. After that, I got into part 3 in Cambridge, which is like a master's course in theoretical physics. Well, it's actually a general maths course, but I focus on theoretical physics anyway. But like during my time there, I realized that I really wanted to apply my maths background to work on something that's more like immediately useful and impactful. So I was naturally drawn to machine learning because like I really see it as a way to really like advance human capabilities. And it's a very general statement, but I see it applied like in all sorts of fields like science, you know, business, everywhere. It's having a huge impact. So how did I get from theoretical physics to data science? Well, I was actually approached by one of the current boot campers, Grace on LinkedIn. That's how I found out about the bootcamp and Beamery. The bootcamp is basically like a 16-week fully paid training program in full stack engineering. I really thought that the training was very, very in-depth and very thorough. It was also a really great opportunity to like work collaboratively with others and build projects together. And I really, sorry, my throat. I really think that's the best way to learn because like learning from others and hearing them asking questions that you never thought of before is like a really great way to progress, I think, in the tech world. Also, obviously, this is a perfect way to get into tech for someone without a computer science background like myself. Yeah, and generally like the support and mentorship that I received on the program was just completely like overwhelming and amazing. Like I was given a mentor from day one, and he spent so many hours with me dealing with my code wall catus obsessions, and he was incredibly helpful. So yeah, it's been a great experience.
Amazing. And we're very lucky to have you, Elisa, here at Beamery. So thank you. Yeah, you're an integral part of the team. And I'm going to hand over to Adelina, who also works at Beamery.
Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. First, I would like to say, like, I'm so inspired by all your stories. I think it's amazing, even more so because I'm coming from a very traditional background, very conventional, unlike you all. I actually studied computer science back home in Romania, in Bucharest. After like a couple of years of studying during my studies, I was starting my part-time job as a very junior software engineer and so forth. I continue to grow in the engineering pathway. So very traditional. That's why I'm saying it's very inspirational to hear your story. I will try to focus a bit of me going to management rather than my engineering career. So after like being an engineer for a couple of years, I ended up in a company. It was also a British company, working as an engineer. My whole team was in Brighton actually, but we had like a hub in Berlin. So we had engineers working in teams there, but the team was kind of like falling apart. So I was like pretty worried. You know, they were like my people that I was like working in the office, going for lunch, really caring about them. So next time when I go to Brighton, I was like talking with my former manager that were the managers, like, this is not going well. The team is falling apart. People are really struggling. And therefore I was like, can I do something? I was a senior engineer at that time, and I was thinking maybe I can just support them and like bring some hope in a way. At some point, like, actually we're thinking about you. Maybe you can step in and like make a career change and support the team in Berlin, but because you were there. But I wasn't sure if you want to, because you were like so technical and like, you want to be technical. As far as I know, I was like, let's explore. So it was nothing that I thought about at that moment. I was just like, okay, I want to help. You were thinking about me, maybe for a reason. So let's explore. So we explore what this role was. And then it was very abstract, of course, right? You can't know until you start doing it. So I got a commitment for like at least 6 months. However, like crappy it is, I would give it a try. Not give up after like 6 months. It was like a more of a 9-month thing. But if my manager thought I am doing a crappy job, then like, okay, this is not for me. I was really struggling at the beginning, like coming from an engineer to a manager. I think it's a change of career. It's not a promotion. You kind of like need to develop different skills. Your role is not to get the most interesting job tasks and do the nitty gritty, but actually enable people. So that was a journey for me. It gave me enough time to like kind of like have a taste of the role. And then I realized that I actually liked it, because the whole purpose of me going to that role initially was to help out and enable others. And it was even more meaningful because we ended up building a great team where everybody had fun, and we solve problems, deliver value to users, but also like helping people grow and reach other part of their potential that they was not aware. So this kind of got me into management and got me hooked, mostly from this perspective. I really love being part of people's career journeys and help and enable people. And I like building teams and creating. I'm passionate about creating culture and stuff like that. So after my first management role, I changed companies. I worked my previous company before Beamery was like SoundCloud, 5 years there. I think what helped like grow from like engineering manager to senior engineering manager to director and so forth was for me to always like look up to see where I can help and say always yes. Like, oh, this I need your help, or like this team is struggling, can you help? I always just said yes and see how it goes. Being really scared, but being scared sometimes is good. This means that you're uncomfortable, you're growing, you're moving forward. So this is kind of a bit very, very short my career journey, starting with my first management role. And yeah, now I'm a senior director of Beamery. Excited to be here and here for like just a couple of months, loving the team, and again, super inspired by your stories. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Adelina. That was epic. I work closely with you, but I didn't know your first management role. But you always give advice of like, just kind of, if it's scary, put yourself out of your comfort zone and like ride it out and do it. And I think that's what a lot of the women today have kind of expressed. You've all taken like leaps of faith and run with it, and you're all doing incredible. So I'm going to hand it over to Jess for if there's any questions.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. It's really interesting to hear that everyone's pathway is all like sort of different, and I'm sure it's really great to hear like less traditional ways as well, which I think a lot of people just try and find out, if they've not gone down that traditional route, how can they get into tech. So we've had a question come through from Beth in the chat. So she says, when will Beamery next be recruiting for the bootcamp, and what level do you need to be to apply?
I can probably answer that one. So Beamery, we currently have a registration. I can share it in Discord as well for you to register. In terms of when we'll be launching the start dates, it will likely be between, the kickoff will be between kind of November, December, January, February. We're unsure of the exact start date, so it might be the start of the new year. It might be towards the end of summer. But as soon as we've got the exact dates, we'll let you know if you register through the Beamery Bootcamp. But in terms of what you need to know to get onto it, is you just need to love tech. You need to really want to get into it, be excited about it, and we will support you with everything else. You don't have to know too much in the process of registering. We actually send out material for you to learn, and the level of material that we send out could be at the level where you literally have no experience, and this is exactly where you're going to start off. So you have to have a love to tech, you have to have an understanding. And personally, I think if you're here today doing the Athena hack and you're listening to the amazing panel of speakers, then you're probably in the right place to get registering and get applying. Hopefully that helped you answer.
No, thank you. That's really, really great. So Beth, if you have any further questions on that, feel free to drop any more in the chat, or we can obviously share. Verity would be more than happy to speak with you. We can share details afterwards. So a few sort of Q&As that I wanted to go through. If there's any more in the chat, feel free to post them. So I mean, whoever wants to lead on this question, completely up to you. But how has rejection shaped your career path, and what has it taught you in hindsight?
I'll take that one. So rejection hurts, okay? Like, I'm not here to say that it's okay if you get rejected, just move on. Each person processes rejection in a different way, and over the years, I found that I'm getting better at processing rejection. It used to take me a while to get over it, but now I can just bounce back. And I see rejection as a redirection in your path. And it means that you're able to gain experience as well. So, for example, when I first moved into tech, I started to apply to loads of companies and just got that email back saying, you know, sorry, you're not the right fit for this role. We're actually looking for blah, blah. And I would sit there and just be so disappointed. I was so disappointed. But through the experience of going for applying, putting your CV together, having that initial sort of interview, like behavioural interviews, competency interviews, using STAR framework and technical interviews, I got better and better over time and more confident about the processes. Now, it does mean that sometimes you have to take a step back and go, okay, can I learn something and get feedback? So sometimes you have to email back and say, hey, I didn't get the role, but you know, how can I do things differently next time? Was there anything that I could improve? Are there extra learning materials that you recommend for me to go and look at to learn about a specific programming concept? And I learned a lot through that process, and also learned to recognize red flags as well. So if there's any aspects of a company's interview process that are a bit fishy, like they are sort of not inclusive, for example, or the language used isn't so great, then I will pick up on that. So it's a redirection, and I wouldn't be in my role today if it hadn't have been for those redirections and rejections. And thankfully, I got rejected from accounting and management consulting, because otherwise I would have accepted that and not gone into an engineering role in tech. So really happy with that redirection, and all the dots connect when I sort of look back now. But hopefully that's helpful. And I was wondering if other people had anything to add on that, and how you've sort of handled rejection.
I personally like how you put it. You put it as like rejection being a pivotal episode of your career. You know, because we think about rejection as like really like negative things, hurts, you don't want that. But at the end of the day, it's a fact of life, right? And as you mentioned, it's like how to deal with it and how to like phrase it in a way that actually it's on the positive side. You know, like having it as a learning tool, rather as a stagnation moment. I think you put it extremely well. Just wanted to emphasize on that. I really like it how you put it.
Did anyone else have anything to add on that one? Any experiences that you've had of rejection, or anything else on that side?
I mean, every time I've been rejected, it's hurt exactly like him, but every single time, I'd say maybe like 6 months to a year later, I look back and I'm like, oh wow, if I hadn't had that, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So yeah, completely agree with you, Kim.
Awesome. Right. So next question. So how has mentoring affected your career journey, both as a mentor and a mentee? So whoever wants to kick that one off, I don't know, Elisa or Jessie.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I think, especially coming from a non-traditional background, something that I feel a lot is the difference in what's expected of me in terms of learning and growth. So in other non-technical roles, it can be expected of you to make lots of progress really quickly. And I think sometimes with engineering, that can't always be the case. So there's a lot of self-imposed pressure and kind of expectations that you put on yourself that aren't really realistic, to at least to begin with. I think first of all, it's a really difficult thing to do, and there's just a vast amount that you need to learn. So I think for me, having a mentor was really helpful in having that reassurance that like it's okay that you're finding these things really difficult. It's normal that the progress feels slower than other roles you've had. It is normal for you to feel like you aren't progressing as fast as you want to, and kind of also giving you the ability to reflect on the things that you are learning. So that's something that I've benefited from in terms of having a mentor. And then in terms of having a mentee now, I've been doing this for a little while, and there are people that I speak to that haven't yet done it. It's been really helpful to also provide the same reflections of like, I have made a lot of progress in a short period of time, and I'm now at the point where I can share that help with that knowledge with other people. It's nice to be able to give back in the same way that people from the community gave to me, and that's been something that has been really encouraging for me in my journey. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, just to add to the mentor side, when you had a mentor, what did your company buddy you up, or did you find someone? Is it like a third party? Where did you find them?
Yeah, so I've had mentorship in a few different forms. In the formal sense of there's the program called the Black Valley Career Accelerator Program. I was formally paired with a mentor in that situation, and that was really, really helpful. But then, yeah, like you said, the kind of informal mentorship that you get just from people more senior than you in the teams that I've worked in as well in engineering at CyberSafe. I think it doesn't always have to be the former. It doesn't always have to be formal. I think if you're exposed to a variety of different people who have higher technical ability, I think the biggest thing you can gain from a mentor, especially in the earlier stages of your engineering journey, are the learning how to learn bits that you just it's really difficult to learn on your own. So it's not always the technical abilities and skills that they can impart on you, but more just like helping you to figure out how exactly you learn and how you can, improve over time. So yeah, a few different places, but I don't think it always has to be formal when you're looking for a mentor. It can just be somebody that you work with a lot who's able to, help you.
Great, thanks, Jessie. Was there anyone else that wanted to on the panel that wanted to add regarding like mentorship, like if you've been a mentor or or you've had a mentor in the past, what you'd sort of recommend and how you found your experience?
Yeah, I had a mentor as part of the bootcamp. He was amazing. I really, really enjoyed working with him. I learned like so much from him. I think I really treat them as like the source of knowledge and be like the sponge and like absorb everything they say, because it's like I learned like a huge amount. He spent so much time coaching me in different like software engineering aspects. But other than like the technical stuff as well, he also included me in some like interviews and meetings, so I was shadowing in that. So he also helped me understand like the broader business and how the engineering and the product you're working on is actually being used, and like what you're doing is actually useful in what way. Yeah, so I've had a really good experience.
Awesome. No, that's great. And have you been a mentor yourself?
No, I haven't. Not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe
Not yet. No, I'm sure there will be time in the future, definitely.
We actually encourage at Beamery through our bootcamp, we actually encourage people who were on the bootcamp previously to then go back and teach a bit on the next bootcamp. So Lindsay, for example, who did the React course yesterday, she was on our bootcamp, and then she actually was a mentor on our bootcamp that Elise was on, as well as teaching some things as well on it. So we try and give that opportunity for people to kind of learn to become mentors as well.
Yeah, I want to add something. In my career, sometimes, for example, being a manager can be very lonely. You can't just go to your team and like say what's your problem. You kind of need to connect with your peers, and if you don't have any peers, you kind of definitely need some support. So in the past, I just asked for help. So somebody that I admired and I thought I can learn from, I went directly to them and asked them if they want to be my mentor. And this is how I can kind of like learn the value of mentorship, how that experience, like helped me. And I tried to give back as well. So I've been a mentor in my previous company to people in the company, for people that were struggling, or how they wanted to see their career moving forward. And for somebody that was actually in a different department, like customer experience, I wanted to move to engineering. So this kind of like two examples that I want to point out that are a bit different than like traditional kind of mentoring, supporting this growing as an engineer and so on. Were the most fulfilling relationships that I had. Because they were just I just felt like I could help in a different way rather than in more traditional team specifics that were extremely valuable for me. So I encourage everybody that wants to give back to try this out. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add to what Adelina just mentioned there, you learn a lot from being able to mentor others. I don't feel you need to have a qualification in coaching or official sort of training to become a mentor. You can reach out in the community. So if you want to find mentees, a lot of the questions I get asked is, how do you find your mentee? Or how do you find your mentor? Reach out to the tech community. So Coding Black Females, Code First Girls, Code Bar, all of these communities and many, many more encourage people to start mentoring and helping others, and you learn a lot, and in the future your mentee could then mentor you. So it's not this hierarchical relationship where, oh no, there's a formal call. It can be just an informal coffee chat. Interestingly, Lindsay is actually my mentee a few years ago at Code First Girls, when she joined their sort of fellowship program, and we've just become friends over the years. And she's actually I'm learning a lot from her now, so she's sort of mentoring me now. So it's sort of really nice to see that sort of transition. And sometimes you ride it and experience it in different ways. So with some of my mentees, I get ghosted, so they never respond. Other mentees become friends, others become my mentor. So you need to be ready that each person just needs something different from you, and once they've got that advice from you, then it's okay for them to move on. That's absolutely fine. So don't feel everything needs to be perfect, and don't quit mentoring or seeking out a mentor because you've had one bad experience, because there's always new ways you can learn and grow from others.
Perfect. That's awesome, Kim. Thank you. I mean, in that time, we've had someone else come through on the chat, so Samia. I think this is sort of rolling back a little bit on some of the other questions, but I'll leave it open, whoever wants to take this one. But it says, what were the obstacles, if any, when moving into tech?
For me, it was the financial barrier. So I'm really pleased to hear that Beamery are sort of thinking about that and actually sort of not charging people a lot of money to attend sort of a boot camp. And that's not to say, if you have savings and you have the financial ability to be able to pay for a boot camp, go ahead. I'm not saying that don't do that. That's your decision to make, but don't feel if you're in a sticky financial situation and you don't have the savings, maybe try and seek some free options like free code camp, Beamery, Code Bar, all these options available to you first. And don't feel you have to go to boot camp, by the way, to get a role in tech. Sometimes you just go for a company, reach out to a company and say, hey, do you have any programs on offer? Or do you have anywhere that you can sponsor me? So I went to talk by Funmi, who currently works at Spotify, but she reached out to a company in the past and they sponsored her place at a boot camp. So yeah, for me it was financial, which is why I took a while just doing some research, looking for the scholarships and seeking out free mentorship at Code Bar and free Code Camp to even online on Twitter, just to get advice before I moved, because I knew it was such a big risk if I had gone and shifted out, several grand. It is quite expensive and had to pay rent, so I had to consider that and work on the side during my boot camp as well. But yeah, that was me.
Oh, who's that? A lot. Yeah, I mean, not that I'm in a tech company, but I'm not in tech. But being even in a tech company, I can sometimes feel, maybe not so much now, but maybe for the first like 9 months, I felt a lot of imposter syndrome in some ways sometimes. I know everyone talks about that, but like you can feel like you're not meant to be not meant to be there, but like in your head, you're like, oh my God, like everyone's so smart, everyone's so clever, everyone had traditional ways into this business, or everyone went to university. But actually, like I said before, when we did that survey, it was like 50% hadn't. And I'd just been sitting there thinking I was the only one. So it was back to what Jessie said as well, is like the more I got to know all my colleagues, the more I realized like, no, I'm smart as well. Like I'm here for, yeah. Like so yeah, I think it's like, yeah, just chatting and getting to know people, and not thinking that like you're the only person who has that feeling of not sure if you're doing the right thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think similarly for me, I think the main barrier would have been that not knowing that this was an option, and like having joined the CyberSafe as a marketing and salesperson, if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have known that this was possible for someone like me to do, having not studied anything related to computer science. So I think also having the access to the people that are doing this themselves and have done it before, and being curious enough to ask those questions is what led me to find out the things that I was interested in, and that route was possible. So I'd definitely say to overcome that, and just be curious and enjoy doing what you do, and look for the things that you enjoy doing, and that's kind of the way that I overcame that self-imposed barrier of not knowing that it was possible to do.
I actually went to we actually hosted an event, but this communities, I've been going to events before them, they're called Triangles. I highly recommend anyone, whether you're an engineer, a product manager, or a customer success or sales working in tech, to join Triangles community, because I went to a few of their events and I sat in them listening to people talk, and that was probably the moment where I started to feel less alone, and I started to feel part of a community where I was hearing these women speak and non-binary people speak, and I was like, oh my God, they're literally saying how I'm feeling, and I don't feel so alone, and I feel really empowered walking away from this. So that community aspect is huge when you're a woman or a non-binary person in tech, to find your community that you connect with, and it will really help you overcome those barriers.
No, it's really good. If you can send me the link, Verity, I'll get it shared in the YouTube chat so people can connect to that. It sounds really awesome. I think I'd probably quite like to join something like that. So we all experience it, and I think it is also, I know there's been a quite big topic around imposter syndrome, but it definitely seems to impact a lot of sort of women. Like all of us on this call have experienced it, and I think it's just from society. Like it's getting better, and there's definitely a lot of resources out there and a lot of great communities you can be part of, to realize like your voice is going to be heard, and like people, you can make those changes. There's no barriers like in terms of when you want to do that as well. I think in your early 20s, no one knows what they want to do, not many people anyways, and only just starting to work it out. And as you get older, and even then, like I was speaking with a lady the other week, and she's in her 50s and finally realized what she really wants to do with her life. But that's fine, like you go on your own course and shouldn't feel pressured by those things. So no, thank you, Samir. I hope that answers your question really well. One that we got, let's have a look here. So what do you think are red flags for an interview process for a company? So I don't know who would want to lead on that one.
I can take that one. Yeah, one company I interviewed for, I was actually scouted by a recruiter. I had maybe like 3 tests sent to me over like a month, and I didn't actually get to speak to a single person at the company or find out any more about them. It was just test after test after test. I think that very like impersonal approach where they treat you almost like a computer in a way is basically a big red flag for me, because it just shows that they're not really treating you as a human, and like they don't really value your like contribution culturally in a way, I guess. So yeah.
One of the red flags for me is inclusivity. For example, you have all these hiring hiring processes where you receive a lot of tests or homeworks to do beforehand. This doesn't take in consideration that some of the people out there are actually working mothers or having another job and all these sorts of things. So having this kind of like expectation to spend so much time, your free time, to do that type of work, I think is not very inclusive. I mean, I guess some of the big names out there afford that. They maybe were not triggering towards those candidates, but I don't think this is inclusive. So this is for me a red flag. So whenever I receive something like that, I just make sure that, you know, like if I have time, I spend the time, but if not, I just time box it. Another one for me is like, if I feel like I'm going through an interview process and I don't learn something new through that process, is like, it's concerning. So if I feel like I'm having a bit of fun and I'm learning something, it's like, this could be interesting. So not learning anything, everything seems like, you know, like boring. For me, it means that it's not going to be a good thing for me. These two things are important, besides, of course, what Alisa said as well. I wanted to add that.
I don't think it's a red flag. I mean, maybe it is, but I think having the chance to meet people throughout the interview process that aren't just like the leadership or like the like final, like the people who you probably won't spend that much time with, but actually having a chance to meet your colleagues. So even asking in your interview process, you know, like, can I get a coffee in with some of the team, or like, can I meet some of the people I'll be working directly with? Because if you haven't met any of them, how do you know what your team's like? You're just hearing it from like the director or the founder or the C-suite or something like this. So yeah, definitely get asking to meet your colleagues.
From my side, I agree with everything that's said. I think definitely inclusivity, definitely being able to have a chat and meet your sort of potential future colleagues, but also from a technical side as well. A lot of companies are still figuring out the best way to assess people from a technical standpoint. And when I've been to a lot of interviews where it's quite academic, and I go, why do I need this in my role? So when they ask you a test about certain technical terminologies, like what is big O notation? How do you do this in multiple threads? And you're like, you know, I'm new in tech, right? Like I can learn. So my response always has been, I can learn. Can you guide me? Can you give me a hint? Give me a clue? So when it gets academic and the response to can you give me a clue is you should know that, that's a big, big red flag, and it's a big no-no. So during your interview process, it's a way of learning together, and a way to, in tech, you do a lot of pair programming or mob programming, which is a way for engineers to work together to solve a problem. If you are not finding the help you need to get into the interview process and succeed, then it is not the place to be. And the interview process is to catch you in, not to catch you out. So if you're being caught out, then it is a big sign. And also career gaps. Career gaps shouldn't matter for someone to succeed in their role. I'm really passionate about it. So I used to work at tech returners, and they focus on getting people who've had an engineering experience, but because of their career gap, they've actually not been able to quickly return back into tech. Their CVs are just being automatically rejected by an algorithm, and that's pretty sad. So being able to be assessed from you, your experience and what you can bring, rather than what you have fixed in your CV. So it's your potential rather than your past, because people change, people can learn. You're not dictated by what you've done in the past.
Yes, that's actually the product that Elisa works on is hiring for skills and not CVs, basically, essentially. So hopefully Elisa will change the world with her team. But yeah, I was going to say as well, like a big, huge yes is if you feel like you're sitting in an interview and they are pitching their company to you, then that's epic. If you feel like you're sitting in an interview and you're consistently having to pitch yourself and there's not an opportunity where they're trying to sell you their company, then like they're probably, I don't know, that's a big red flag for me. Like I want them to pitch to me, like I want them to win me over. So yeah, it's a two-way street is what I'm basically saying. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love every point that you said there. I think it's sometimes as a candidate, you almost feel like you put the company on a pedestal, but that relationship, as you say, is a two-way path. And I was chatting with like one of the students that we work with, and she was talking about neurodiversity as well, and she was finding what you're saying there about the technical testing side. Sometimes because of the way the test is set up, straight away she's excluded out of the process because from what she's got autism, so she struggles with certain elements that companies ask of, and she's like, I just don't know how to get around that barrier, because like you were saying, like with the free test or something that you got sent by someone and then hadn't actually spoken to someone in the business, this is exactly what she's been struggling with. Like, I just need to speak with someone and explain my situation, but that kind of doesn't, the current processes right now don't allow me to do that. So I mean, there's a lot changing at the moment. It sounds really cool. Obviously the product got built in there to hire, like to be inclusive, not to exclude people. So it'd be really interesting to see that roll out in the not too distant future. So I think we've got a few minutes left in terms of is there anyone else that wanted to add regarding red flags? So I've just got sort of one last question that I'll go around the panel for. No, that's cool. So last question then, what advice would you give yourself at the start of your career? So not to pick on anyone, but I'm just going to go from who's next to me on the page. So Adelina, do you want to kick off with that one?
Yeah. What advice I would give to myself? I think early in my career, I was extremely shy, like being in my corner, doing my work, expecting people to see that and recognize that. So I think that this was like if I would give an advice to me right now, I would say, like speak up, be proactive, ask for what you need, and like show your work. Most of the time I see engineers that don't ask for what they need or like go towards opportunities they're excited about, assuming that at some point somebody will come to them and give them that opportunity. Like your manager might be the best person to like show you those opportunities and help you, but maybe you see more than that, right? You know what you can do. So I think like having courage to to put yourself out there and ask for what you need is something that personally I'll give myself an advice for. I learned through that, so this is what further in my career, like if I want something, I go get it. And then another one, I mean, it goes in line to that, I guess, like being uncomfortable, that would have been being for me very uncomfortable. So what I learned, like when you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, this is where growth comes. This you learn and stuff. So these are like I think like very vivid in my mind when I think about like advice for me for a career, and I guess for other people that kind of like struggle with the same things.
I think my advice to myself earlier on would have been like keep track of your achievements early on, and like make sure you log every time you do something you're proud of or something that you want to celebrate, because as I've touched on a couple of times, there can be like a disconnect between how you feel you're progressing and how you're actually progressing. And you can have those tough days where you're beating yourself up a little bit, going like, oh, I can't do this without help. I'm really struggling with this thing. Maybe it's not for me. And I think having that wins document that you can look back on and say, like, yeah, I've managed to do this thing by myself for the first time the other day. Those can be really helpful, like encouragements, and keep you going on the times when, yeah, it's a little bit tougher to stay motivated.
I think my advice would be, like, if you're not sure what you want to do at the time, really don't worry about taking the time off. Don't feel like you have to be doing something all the time. Take time off and like explore different subjects. Like when I finished uni for the last time, I've done many uni, the last university, I actually took some time. I did some online courses, explored different things, and I really like settled down. Like machine learning is definitely like the one for me. I love this. This is what I want to do for a career. So yeah, try different courses, read books, and yeah, just take time off, or yeah, I've been.
I think mine would be mostly all of that. Like, I'm like nodding lately. Yeah. I think it would be follow your curiosity and don't feel that your identity in the future is exactly the same as it is now, because your identity is multifaceted. You are not defined by your past, you are not defined by your present or your future. Okay, now we're going to meta stuff. So just because you are doing a certain job right now doesn't mean that that would be in the future. So follow your curiosity. If you like art or you like drawing, I'm doing a jigsaw puzzle, just do that today. You don't feel you have to live by a virtual linear path. Like paths are very non-linear. So just because someone's posted something on Twitter, on LinkedIn, doesn't mean that you have to follow the exact same path that you are treading on. You can use that as a guidance and take some top tips, but you can craft your own path based on other people's paths. Because moving into tech, I wasn't kind to myself at the beginning because I thought you had to be this influencer, and I started writing so many blogs and I had like a regimented schedule and I didn't really rest. I've got to admit, I burnt out because I thought, oh, you have to write blogs or you have to do that. They're good, doing it is good, but if you are finding you're not enjoying it anymore, then stop for a bit and reevaluate and reprioritize. So do that, and also learn how to say no. I said yes so many times to so many different things. Looked at my calendar and thought, I haven't got to me time. So what I've done over the past 2 years is inverted my calendar, popped my me time in first, so put those calendar slots in first, and then have some sort of tool like Calendly to then schedule in some catch-up times, volunteering times. So put your time in first. And it's not selfish to put your time in first. And then everything else will just slot into place. So say no to certain opportunities. I know it hurts. I still feel very sad when I say no to certain things, but you can only do so much. And yeah, do other things that are non-tech related as well, by the way. Like your life isn't just tech and isn't just your career.
I would say trust your instincts. I wish I'd trust my instincts and trust my gut when people told me to act or be a certain way. I wish I could have told myself, like, just be you and leave that company. Obviously, it's easier said than done, and for financial reasons, like there were times when I couldn't until I, had something in place. But I think just knowing that you will find your company that accepts you for being you, and if for any reason you land in a company that's trying to get you to be something you're not, ride it out till you can, like if you financially need to, but like know that you will find your company that makes you happy and lets you be you. And trust your gut, just trust it always. So yeah.
Oh no, thank you everyone. That's been really, really great. Like thanks for all of your input on all of those questions. Unless we haven't got any more questions on the chat right now. Obviously, if we do get anything come through on email and so on, I'll obviously share with you guys and get answers back to anyone that has anything else to ask. But unless anyone has anything left to add, that is a wrap. So look forward to obviously seeing any of you that are coming to Athena who are watching. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I can't believe it's tomorrow. So yeah, not long to go now. Half of my team are setting up at the moment, so we really like to see all your faces, and obviously you'll get to meet some of the Beamery team as well. So thank you so much, and we will see you very, very soon.
Thank you.
I'll be there tomorrow as well, so see you there.
See you tomorrow, Jessie.
Thanks so much, guys.